The world population, which was 190 million in 200 AD, increased at a very low rate for centuries. In 1400 to 1200 years later, the global population had only increased to 350 million. What triggered the population growth rate was the Industrial Revolution. Because the Industrial Revolution increased production like never before, as a result, the population increased. In 1760, which is considered the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, there were 770 million people living in the world. Even though the two bloodiest wars in history took place in the first half of the 1900s, the world population surpassed 2.5 billion in 1951. In 1961, the world population surpassed 3 billion, 4 billion. In 1975, 5 billion. In 1987, 6 billion. In 1999, 7 billion in 2011, and 8 billion in 2023. But now we've come to the end of this dizzying rise. According to experts' estimates, the long-term and steady growth trends in countries, and therefore in the world population, are about to come to an end. In some countries, it has already ended. While the population has grown by billions over the last 50 years, the growth rate has been decreasing. The United Nations predicts that this decline will continue in the coming years. As the growth rate decreases, the world's population is also aging as a result. For example, in 1970, when the average age of all people living in the world was calculated, it was 20.3. Today, the average age of people living in the world is 30.5. In 1965, there was an average of 5.1 births per woman worldwide. So every woman living in the world was having more than 5 children, on average. Today, the birth rate per woman is 2.3. This rate is dropping sharply. A quick side note. In order for the population to remain the same, the average birth rate per woman must be 2.1. When we look at the declining birth rates and even declining marriage rates and rising divorce rates, alarm bells have already started ringing for some nations. It is expected that some nations will disappear from the world in a very short time. For example, there are countries that are nation-states today, but will soon completely lose the nation on which they base their legitimacy. So in this video by Kablosus Dergi, we will take a closer look at the countries whose populations are declining the fastest. Japan. The population of Japan exceeded 128 million in 2009, reaching the highest level in its history. However, it began to decline after that day. They saw a decline of around 6 million with a current population of 122.7 million. The annual change in the country's population has risen to an average of -4 per thousand. So every year, 4 out of every 1,000 Japanese people decrease, and this rate is increasing even more. What's even worse is that about 1/3 of the country's population is made up of people over the age of 65. This makes them the oldest population in the world. The birth rate per woman has dropped to as low as 1.3. For every child born, the average life expectancy is expected to be 82 years. All these factors are causing the reproduction rates in the country to decline. Also, in order to economically maintain a certain standard of living, people are discouraged from getting married and having children. As is known, Japan, being an island country, is an expensive country. They also have geographically limited residential areas. For this reason, real estate prices are high. All these factors lead to Japanese people getting married less, having fewer children, and their population decreasing. One of the interesting details that leads to the population decline in Japan is the spread of a trend called ohitorizama in their own language, which means the art of living alone. This trend, which has been increasing for the past decade, became more prevalent after the pandemic. The main reason why people who prefer to live alone choose this is not because they can't find friends or can't enter a social circle. On the contrary, it's because they constantly feel pressured in their work and social circles. Japanese people who want to escape from the constant demands placed on them and get rid of the pressure of expectations don't want to interact with anyone in their free time. Moreover, this situation is spreading not only among adults, but also among children of school and university age. In recent years, the art of living alone, Ohitori-sama, has started to be accepted throughout society. The food and entertainment industry has also adapted to this situation. For example, karaoke is one of the Japanese people's favorite entertainment activities, and this activity is usually enjoyed with a group. But today there are places where people go and do karaoke alone. Before the solitary lifestyle was accepted, some people preferred to eat their meals in restroom stalls at school or work. This was called benjamesi in Japanese. As the solitary lifestyle spreads, people are minimizing their relationships with the opposite sex. This also creates one of the obstacles to getting married or having children. As a result, Ohitori-sama is also cited as one of the reasons for the decline in Japan's population. Although Japan is a developed industrial country, it has remained conservative about immigration for many years. Due to its closed and monocultural nature, even though they are integrated with the world thanks to their advanced economies, everyone, including themselves, admits that they are very different in terms of lifestyle, partly due to their geographical location. To preserve this traditional structure, they kept their distance from labor migration for many years. Until recently, they only granted residence and work permits to professionals with a high level of expertise and knowledge. However, to fill the labor shortage caused by the declining population, they have recently changed their immigration policies. Now they also grant residence and work permits to people with worker status. Data from Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare shows that in early 2024, the number of foreign workers in Japan surpassed 2 million, a first for the country. Romania, with a population of 19,600,000, is already not a very crowded country. Two political turning points they experienced in recent history have led to their population shrinking at an alarming rate today. The first of these turning points is the year 1989, when Ceausescu was overthrown and the communist regime came to an end. After communism collapsed, a quarter of Romania's population migrated to another country. Another important turning point after the collapse of communism was Romania's admission to the European Union in 2007. The right of Romanian citizens to freely move, settle, and work in European countries made migration abroad more common. In fact, one of the main goals of Romanian youth today is to migrate to one of the developed countries. There are more than 1 million Romanians living in Italy and Spain, about 900,000 in Germany, 540,000 in England, and 450,000 in America. Hundreds of thousands of Romanian citizens also reside permanently in Canada, France, Austria, Belgium, and many other countries. According to data from Eurostat, the official statistics provider of the European Union, Romanian citizens are actually the community that has children at the youngest average age in Europe, but the fertility rate is about 1.6 children per woman. This is an additional factor that makes it impossible to compensate for the population loss caused by migration. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, many Western companies moved their production and operation centers in Eastern Europe to Romania. However, the insufficient and shrinking population makes it difficult to find a workforce. The fact that women in Romania are increasingly moving away from the idea of having children is rooted in a recent historical trauma. In general, dictators want women to have as many children as possible. Ceausescu passed a law in 1966 for women to have more children and to increase the population. With this law, birth control methods were restricted. Ceausescu argued that the purpose of the law was to fight against Western imperialism and therefore to increase the workforce. According to the law, women could only have abortions for certain reasons. One of these reasons was that the woman seeking an abortion had to have at least 5 children. Another reason was if there was a medical necessity to terminate the pregnancy. If any woman secretly had an abortion and it was discovered, she would be sentenced to prison. Or let's say a woman had an abortion and some complications occurred after the procedure. A woman who was already likely to be sentenced to prison could not receive medical help unless she also gave the name of the person who performed the abortion. In 1989, the year Ceausescu was overthrown, the rate of female deaths in Romania was the highest in Europe. Also, during the communist era, many women who were forced to give birth to children they did not want abandoned these children on the streets. Again, after Ceausescu was overthrown, it was revealed that 170,000 children were trying to survive in inhumane and extremely crowded places in 700 centers scattered across the country. Right after the dictator was overthrown, the abortion and birth control law was changed. But the law that was enforced for many years and the tragedies experienced because of it caused a major trauma in the collective mind of the Romanian people, and having children became a taboo for many women. In Bulgaria. In the early 1980s, Bulgaria's population was about 9 million, but today it has dropped to around 6.5 million. This means it's one of the biggest population losses in modern times, proportionally. If Bulgaria continues at this rate, in about 100 years, there will be no one of Bulgarian origin left in the world. Bulgaria is the poorest country in the European Union. The number one goal of every young person graduating from university is to leave the country and start working and build a new life in one of the developed countries. Since joining the European Union in 2007, about 1 million Bulgarian citizens have migrated to wealthy Western European countries, such as Germany, England, and the Netherlands. This high level of immigration has caused the male population to decline more rapidly. Today in Bulgaria, 52.1% of the population are women and 47.9% are men, and this imbalance is increasing. Another consequence of migration is an aging population. Today, about 1 in every 4 Bulgarians is 65 years old or older. Only about 1 in every 10 Bulgarians is under the age of 18. The long-standing communist regime in Bulgaria collapsed in 1990, and the country transitioned to democracy after that. Despite transitioning to democracy and state functioning, the communist system persisted institutionally and mentally within the state. This led to a system where corruption was widespread and decisions were made not for the country and the people, but for the interests of those who controlled the state apparatus. This system resulted in a country with a high level of corruption and consequently widespread income inequality and poverty. Even though they joined the European Union in 2007 and managed to improve the situation to some extent, they still haven't been able to abandon their old habits. Additionally, the Bulgarian people are among the highest consumers of cigarettes and alcohol in the world. Widespread harmful habits lead to public health problems and high mortality rates. According to recent studies, 53% of the population decline is due to the number of births being lower than the number of deaths, while 47% is caused by migration. There is an important detail about the decline of Bulgaria's population that concerns us beyond just being our neighbor. This country is one of the places where Turks, or in other words, people of Turkish origin, make up the largest proportion of the total population. According to different sources, Turks make up between 10% and 15% of Bulgaria's population. Although the birth rate among Bulgarians is rapidly declining, this is not the case for the Turkish population. Turkey's population grows by around 15,000 annually. If these conditions continue, Turks could become the main ethnic group in Bulgaria in the near future.